Welcome to Western Sydney's International Dragway. More action on the quarter mile behind us shortly. Nathan Prendergast, what can we expect on today's show?
Well, if you love your V8 supercars, we've got some real V8 action coming your way today. 3,000 horsepower, 240 mile an hour, top Doorslammers, plus the bravest men in the sport, 200 mile an hour of the top fuel motorcycles.
If you love your motorsport, high speed, you've come to the right place. We hope you can stick around for all today's action.
What a crowd we have in the house here. Don't tell me Sydney hasn't been waiting for championship drag racing to return. This incredible Western Sydney International Dragway being opened officially by Premier Bob Carr. The pits are jammed. The crowd is absolutely electric. Everybody waiting to see what will no doubt be an incredible opening meeting. Plenty more action here today. We're looking forward to bringing it to you. Time now for Dragster Australia Super Gas Eliminations Round 1, a class where nothing is ever what it seems. And Neil Maxwell in the Windsor 355 cubic inch powered Corolla up against Daryl Stevens' Ford Capri with a Windsor 351.
Super Gas Eliminator sits on its own in Group 4. It's a fixed index, but if you go under that index of 9.90, you actually break out and lose. What makes this interesting is it's a heads-up start. That means a professional start with one flash of all 6 ambers, and they get to race down. On this occasion, Neil Maxwell has the advantage. He has to start at 9.9. That's where you see the nose dip. He runs a 10.04 at 194 kilometres per hour. The speed down a little bit because he was on the brakes. Now, as I said, you've got to stay under or above that 9.90. If you go too quick, you lose the race. So it doesn't matter if you got to the finishing line first. If he had gone quicker than 9.9 seconds, he would have unfortunately lost. Now, if you watch it here, the car starts to dip the nose. He's just dipping the brake. He's looking over his shoulder thinking, I've got this race. And he just jumped on the brakes to save the run.
Michael Jennings now in the Mark 1 Cortina with 355 Chev from Valley View in South Australia, up against Vince Bonetta from Narrowena in New South Wales, the hatchback Tory with a 400 cubic inch Chev.
The beauty of this category is you get a big variety of cars. Majority of them are sedan cars, but because it's a fixed index of 9.90, you pretty much can run next to anything sedan or roadster in this category. And the other thing that the drivers really like about it, and the fans, is it's not handicap racing. So both cars leave the start line at exactly the same time. It's what you call heads up, and it's about who's got their car running as close to 990 as possible.
Well, I thought Panetta got away pretty well, but Jennings, I think, is going to run him through. Very good run from Jennings, gets the win, a 990 at 217 kilometres an hour, beats a 991. Panetta got off the line beautifully, Nathan, but couldn't go on with it.
And did you see that time? It was a 9.902, so he was on that index within 2/1000ths of a second. That is a next to perfect pass for the Cortina in the far lane. He got a pretty good reaction time, but a 9.902, you really can't get too much better than that.
Do we call that good luck or good management, Nathan?
Oh, a bit of both, I think.
Bodie McCormack in the Holden Statesman from West Melton in Victoria up against Mark Kalis from Lebanon, South Victoria in the Mitsubishi Scorpion. And the Statesman does look mean.
Yes, I'm pretty sure that car's the ex-Hugo Di Vincenzo car, which this car has been Australian champion in Supergas before, so it's got the pedigree. You might notice the car's come out and nose over. It's not going to matter this time. The Statesman's going to get the win because we've got a red light at the far lane.
Yeah, the Scorpion can't be happy with that at all.
985, Wade, you saw he realised he had the win and he tested his dial-in, so he drove it through the back door, and the car obviously is set up to go a little bit too quick, so he'll have to slow it down for the next pass.
Dale O'Dwyer from Toowoomba in the HZ Holden right there up against Roy Romeo from Catherine Fields in New South Wales in the Plymouth Arrow.
You might watch some of these cars, they tend to launch hard, then almost looks like they slow down a little bit. They tend to nose over because there's a fair bit of technology involved in this class, and they have little delay boxes and so forth that slow the cars up at the right time and then accelerate to get close to that 990. In this case, the far lane's gone too quick. A 988, he got there first, however, he broke out, giving the win to O'Dwyer.
Man, it's not like there's enough to think about, is there? You've got to win the race and do it just outside that index.
There's a fair bit involved with it when you think about it. You're covering the racetrack at over 200 kilometres per hour in under 10 seconds. You've got to look where your other competitor is, try to work out, hey, should I get on the brakes? Is the car running too quick? In this case, he hasn't bothered. He's got to the finishing line first, but the win will go to O'Dwyer.
Oh, you've got to love the gem. How tough does that look? Stuart McBain, the Gemini Coupe from Telecom Victoria, up against Neil Henry from Sunbury in the Subaru.
Well, if Holden and Subaru had brought him off the factory floor looking like this, I think they would have sold quite a few more of them.
Absolutely. The Subi in the outside lane looks fantastic. Here comes the Gemini, big run, and gets through a 9.92 again. Another breakout, 9.88.
Yes, and he had to drive, the Subaru had to drive a little bit too hard because he was a little bit slower off the start line. The Gemini had the advantage and he had to drive it out the back door, the Subaru, but unfortunately too quick. The Gemini, though, very good at 9.92. We'll see him into the next round of eliminations with a strong setup.
Yeah, good run. Great looking cars that really do put a lot of imagination into these body styles too, and that's got to help to appeal to the spectator classes. Let's have a look now. Next run up is Johnny Summernationals in the Ford Cortina up against Dave McDonald, the Nissan Skyline Coupe. A couple of, in fact, a Windsor 302 up against a Chevy 406.
The Body Rig Smash Repairs Cortina has been around for a long time with quite a lot of success in Supergas. As I said before, it appeals not only to the racers because of the heads up, but to the fans because they can understand a little bit easier two cars leaving the start line at the same time. As good as handicap racing is for the different types of cars in drag racing, it can be a little bit confusing to the drag racing spectator that's just beginning in the sport. However, it's very easy to understand two cars leaving the start line at the same time and racing each other hard.
Oh, big wheelie for the Cortina, and it is gone off the line beautifully. This will be a very big run, provided he gets outside that index.
Yes, he's rolled off the front. You can see him comfortably cruises through a 10.11 at 161 kilometres an hour, and he takes the win.
Time now for round one, thanks to Pennzoil of top Doorslammer eliminations, as we see Ben Bray in the Castrol Chevy, soon to be the Super Cheap Autos Chevy, and alongside him it's Gary Phillips, long-time supporters, Lucas Oil Products on the side of that immaculate Studebaker. Hasn't been a great start to the weekend for Gary, but he's improved dramatically, Nath.
Yes, he certainly has. Was looking, unfortunately, like not qualifying for a second time in the top Doorslammer field. However, Saturday night put this car into #1 qualifying position with a 6.23. The speed down a little bit at only 217 miles an hour, but it's the ET or elapsed time that counts, and 6.23 was good enough for #1.
And that's going to help your confidence coming into today's action in front of this enormous crowd of the opening round of Western Sydney. Pennzoil, top Doorslammer action. Of course, confidence is something that Ben Bray lacks nothing of, as we see Phillips backing up the Lucas Studi. Big deal for Super Cheap Autos signing up with Ben Bray. It's a great result for the Bray family. It'll certainly take some of the financial burden off running two cars.
Yes, and Ben is the defending Australian top Doorslammer champion as well, but he's very lucky to be in this field. I don't think Ben's qualified in #8 position in top Doorslammer, I think, ever at all, or certainly not very often, that's for sure. This car would like to be running a little bit quicker than what it is, but top Doorslammers are very heavy cars with a lot of horsepower, and in these hot conditions at over 40 degrees centigrade and over 60 degrees on the racetrack, it makes it very hard to keep these things glued to the racetrack.
A seasoned adversary up against a wildcard kid with some big races to his name already.
Bray gets out with the advantage of the start line. Phillips heads towards the centre line, and he's not going to catch him. It's going to be Benny Bray all the way. He'll pick up the win and stop the clocks with a 6.44, beats a 6.46, 355 kilometres an hour. And look at the reaction times, a 0.125 and a 0.74. So Ben Bray had the advantage off the start line, and he kept it all the way through to the 400 metres at the end.
Yeah, could say he got the lot for less, Nath. Very nice run for him here. Considerably slower than the qualifying time of Phillips. Good run.
Ever let anybody your car? Well, what if it cost $250,000 and you wanted them to drive it as hard and as fast as it could possibly go?
It's a very large responsibility Lucky's given me, and I've taken it and I'm enjoying it.
We've been together for a long time. He was my crew chief in my VN Commodore, and then he was a crew chief in my VP Commodore.
We've been racing now for well over 10 years, and he's shown great faith in me.
I was just looking at him go down the track, and I like that better than being in the car.
Not only is Steve Stanek competing in someone else's car, but he's using someone else's engine after West Australian Grant O'Rourke crashed in qualifying.
We hopped it up a little bit, and look, it just started blazing the tyres. We just got it back in, and it looks like we've driven over oil. They've done a bit of a clean up prior to the first hit of the wall.
We went down to the track and we kicked some rods out, and we were looking for a spare block, and Grant said, you know, have we put my motor in your car, because otherwise you'd be out and I'd be out. At least we'll have one car between the two of us in the field.
We're back in the program now. It was a bit doubtful whether or not we would have been able to turn up for eliminations, but Grant's just been fantastic in this whole thing.
We'll see if we can't go and give these big boys a shake-up.
Yes, Chivalry is alive and well as we turn our attention now to the second run here in round one of eliminations. The Steve Stanek beautifully turned out Camaro, the Lucky Valeri Camaro, with the Grant O'Rourke motor nestled in there. That would have been a job to fit it in, I would think.
Yeah, 3 separate parties involved in this car, so certainly a lot of people willing this thing down the racetrack, and it's fantastic that Grant and Debbie O'Rourke have done the deal with Lucky Valeri to continue this car for competition as it completes its lovely big burnout here at Western Sydney International Dragway.
Best looking Bitzer I have seen in a long time. It is the immaculate car. If we cast our minds back to Willowbank, where it just did the job, knocked off some huge names and got the win. This is a fat-looking car as well. Steve Stanek in the Camaro up against Maurice Fabietti's beautiful Holden Monaro.
Things didn't all go that well for Steve Stanek in qualifying, though. Right out of shape and very close to Robin Judd, who unfortunately did not qualify. And Robin Judd is a big player in Top Doorslammer. He unfortunately did not get into the field. Only 8 cars can qualify into this super tough field of Penzall Top Doorslammer.
Long way to come from Western Australia to go out the door before the show even begins. That Lucky Valeri Racing Camaro backs up.
There's a lot at stake for Lucky Valeri and Steve Stanek. That not only were they keen to get this thing to race here for this weekend because it being the opening event in their home state, but there's also a lot of points at stake because they're certainly up there running in the top of the Australian Championship. So they need to get this car down the racetrack to stay in that position.
It's so good to see Australian-based body kit starting to appear in racing like this. That Monaro looks mean. The K&N Performance Builder sponsorship on the side of Maurice Fabietti's immaculate Monaro.
Yes, Maurice has been around for a very long time, campaigned to Gemini and unfortunately crashed it at the Australian Formula 1 Grand Prix at a demonstration where the car hit the wall very hard, had some time away from the sport for a number of years and has now stepped up to Top Doorslammer with this beautiful Monaro. The car's out of shape. You saw him button off the throttle and Steve Stanek is going to get the win here.
He is brutal, Stanek. Never ever messes up, does he? 6:47 at 350 kilometres an hour. Beats a 6:47.
You can see the O'Rourke Motorsport team very pleased with that run. Have a look at this on the replay. Little bit of tyre shake, but nice and straight. They put a pretty soft combination. 6:47 is quick, but not super quick in Top Doorslammer turns. Have a look at Fabietti closest to screen. You can see the butterfly shut for an instant there. The car started to move around in the top of second gear, I would say. It started to make a shift to the wall. He got off the throttle, and that was enough for Steve Stanek to drive away.
Yeah, sorry, a 680 was what Fabietti ended up with as Victor Bray. The undisputed, can I say that, king of Top Doorslammer action. Have a look at that. Would you like fries with that? That is a monster burnout. Don't the crowd love it? Up against the Batmobile. Peter Kapiris's immaculate Batmobile Studebaker.
There's been some long-time rivalry between the Kapiris brothers racing Studebaker and the Bray family. Of course, it's been between Victor and Peter for a number of years, and now Ben Bray and Peter Kapiris have also had a lot of rivalry. As a matter of fact, the 2003 championship came down to these two, with Ben Bray obviously getting the win. Victor's the king for a number of reasons. He's won 6 championships, but another reason was that big burnout you just saw. That's what he initially made himself famous for, really big burnouts.
And the backup girl, as always, with the Victor Bray team, is his wife, who has been behind his career since day dot.
Yes, Marie Bray, very supportive of both Victor and obviously her son, Ben. She needs to be, because tell you what, that's how they make a living, and these guys work it hard. They travel the country with their promotional burnout 57 Chevrolet and, of course, the 2 drag cars, doing it very well indeed.
This will be a great battle. Kapiris back after a broken leg, of all things. He refused to get the leg set in plaster because he wanted to race at Willowbank. He's back here 100% fit, looking to take on the king.
Yes, Kapiris unfortunately went out in the first round of the Nationals. Can he go one better and at least get to the semi-finals? You know what? I think he's going to do it. Kapiris is going to get the win over Bray.
Big drive for Peter Kapiris, 6:44 beats a 6:47, 359 kilometres an hour. Both those guys went out in round 1 for the Nationals at Willowbank. Kapiris bangs one home at Western Sydney.
Victor Bray, for the second time in 2 race meetings, has been beaten in the top end of the racetrack. Victor, for many years, was famous for a big top-end charge, and he has been beaten by mile an hour for the second time in a row.
Out now comes Alan Sarkis, the 57 Chev. The Sarkis Brothers Racing entry up against the Jack Daniels E-Bank Trade entry of the boss, Brett Stevens. Man, Sarkis ran a long way down the track.
Yes, people love Top Doorslammers because they can relate to these cars. They actually look, well, basically look like something
I was going to say, where are you going with this? They look mean, I'll give you that.
They basically look like something that used to once, a long time ago, drive on the road. Of course, the rules regulate that it has to be a pre-1979 American-bodied car or a late model Australian-bodied car. So you see some pretty tough-looking older American cars like the 50 Studebaker and the 57 Chevrolet. Brett Stevens was in the final at the Nationals in round 1 of the Australian Top Doorslammer Championship, and looking to do fairly well here again today.
Brett, of course, has got an immaculate operation. It's very loud. It's all the bells and whistles. But the Sarkis brothers have got an awesome operation as well. It doesn't stand out as much because it's jet black. But here we go. Stevens off. Got a great start. Sarkis in big trouble. Oh, and that was a big save too.
That was great driving from Alan Sarkis. That car was right out of shape. A 640 at 359 kilometres an hour. But Alan Sarkis, the story of this run, that car went for the centre line. He pulled it back. It got right out of shape. And for a relative newcomer to the sport of Top Doorslammer, Alan Sarkis had a sensational job of driving this car. He's had a lot of experience with some tough street cars, but that was wild.
Now, what happened? Mate, what can I say? Tough competitor, tough track, trying to go for it first round, trying to get in for the next one. Didn't work out. What can you do?
One of the myths about drag racing is when the light turns green, the timers start. Not so. The ET, or elapsed time, actually begins when the front wheels of the race car break the beams on the start line, and the race is timed to 1/1000th of a second.
Located at 60, 330, 660 and 1320 feet are timing beams that track a car's progress and provide invaluable tuning information for the competitors. Speed is measured at half track and at the finish line. However, one of the most important increments is the 60-foot timer. A top fuel dragster can travel 60 feet or 3 lengths of a cricket pitch from a standing start in 0.8 of a second and already be doing 160 kilometres per hour. The movement of the car in the first 60 feet is crucial to its performance for the rest of the track, and this information is highly important to crew chiefs. Another vital piece of information processed by the system is reaction time. Measured from when the light turns green, it determines how quickly a driver and car reacted to the race start. If the reaction time is a perfect 0.0, it means the car left the start line the instant the light went green. Contrary to popular belief, it does not affect your elapsed time, but very much determines if you win or lose.
Time now for some two-wheel action. It's Top Bike, thanks to Wild West Custom Cycles. Kim Stevens on the Top Fuel Harley up against this Sprintex Triumph. Loosely disguised as a Triumph, it is a rocket. It should be registered with NASA. Jay Upton.
Kim Stevens riding the brand new, the third of the Brett Stevens prepared Top Fuel motorcycle. He is a Stevens, but he's no relation.
Yeah, it's a great looking bike too, but the machine that's really capturing everybody's imagination is in the far lane there. The Sprintex Triumph, which ran an Australian Championship record, a 6:45 in qualifying. It brought the house down. You can see him leaving Brett Stevens right there. Nathan caught up with Jay Upton before this event, found out about this incredible bike.
Well, temperatures topped an amazing 43 degrees centigrade here yesterday, and while everyone was struggling on a very hot and greasy racetrack, one man with no such problems, Jay Upton, 6:45. Where did that come from?
Well, we've been sneaking up on it, and one of the great advantages of having a direct drive motorcycle is on greasy tracks we've got a little bit of an advantage.
Why is that?
Well, it's kind of like a top fuel dragster. Again, with no low gear, you're not trying to get that instant high torque onto the start line. It's feeding it on a little smoother, rather like the fuel dragsters do.
Now, you're still smoking the tyres through the top end and loading the thing up with fuel. When are you going to get this thing to run through the top end of the racetrack?
Well, if you could make the weather go a little bit cooler for me tonight, I might be able to do it for you.
Theoretically, if you're running 6:45 and shutting it off around three-quarter track, this bike's got a low 6 at 240 in it, doesn't it?
Yeah, we seriously believe there's a 5 in it, and we always have.
Interesting character, incredible bike. So Kim Stevens and Upton is already gone. A, B, see you later.
Yeah, Kim Stevens got drilled on the start line and the bike just absolutely left for dead. 675, 274 kilometres an hour to move into the semis.
We figured we actually were supposed to run a little earlier and the cloud cover was over, and we'd figured on the track being a little better. And when the sun got up for about half an hour before we got out there, I made a conscious decision. I was talking to Justin and we decided we'd hold the brake at the start line, and I'm glad I did.
Wild West Custom Cycles bringing us top bike action, and Dave Borum bagging up the tyres on the Suzuki. Mark Ashelford, one part of this huge Ashelford Attitude Racing team. His brother Ian still to have his run. So Suzuki up against Harley here in top bike eliminations.
Totally different configurations as well. The Harley Davidson, a twin-cylinder, big thumping injected nitro bike. The Suzuki, I think you'll find, will probably be either turbocharged or supercharged, running on nitromethane. Lots of different bikes, different approaches to drag racing, if you like. But the idea is to get down the quarter mile as quick as you possibly can. The Attitude bike starting to drop some cylinders. It's only got 2, so dropping a cylinder. And Borum's going to get the win here.
Yeah, Borum did it easily, really, in the end. They got off about the same time. You can see reactions quite similar, but there it is, a 7:79 at 268 kilometres an hour, easily accounting for Ashelford on the first of the Attitude Racing bikes. You see there the Suzuki carrying the front wheel all the way off the line. A great ride for Borum. That, of course, takes care of one Ashelford, but there's one more still left, as Daniel Gibson found in the pits prior to this.
Motor racing is a pretty time-demanding sport. It means a lot of time away from your family with track days, testing, and of course, racing. Well, that is unless, of course, you're the Attitude Racing team that has their family with them. Let's go and meet them.
Yeah, Mark's, he runs his own bike. He's got his own crew, a crew of 3 blokes run his bike. Wayne's in my crew on my bike, and we run our bike.
When he first got his little bike, I crewed with him from the start, and yeah, got the bug, yeah, got to ride it.
Mark's their number 1 son, he's on the other team. And number 2 son, number 3 son.
Now, you've got to say there's no favouritism because all 3 are standing right near you at the moment. They'll give you a clip round the ear roll.
Well, I wear gloves on one eye for a lot of them.
They all try hard, we try hard, and whoever wins, wins. Just happens to be me all the time.
he's the baby of a lot of us.
We all pitch in and do our job, you know. It's all good.
All get on well, that's the best thing about it, so yeah, family. But at the end of the day, mate, when that green light drops, we're off. That's it, yeah, I'm in it.
No aspirations to whack on a helmet yourself and blow it down the road?
None whatsoever, no.
Where's Mum?
She's home and manager. She's looking after the place while we're away. Yeah.
She doesn't come to these events anymore, does she?
No, she's a bit frightened of the drags or any car racing, no. Well, I was too, mind you, but I'm getting over it. You know.
Yes, here he comes, Brett Stevens, the man with the bluest eyes in drag racing, no doubt about it. Fairly scary individual when he's mounted up on his Jack Daniels Harley. Ian Ashelford, the second of the Attitude Racing Harleys, coming in now. A tall order to take care of this man, because let's face it, Jack lives here.
Brett Stevens, look at that, 173 cubic inches. That's 2.8 litres, and he puts it to good effect in the burnout, I can tell you.
Looks fast just sitting there. There's a man who's pretty well made a living out of doing burnouts, and look at that, huge burnout. I know he probably hate the term, that's a Victor Bray burnout on a bike.
Oh, he would certainly not like that term.
They don't get on, do they? They're such leaders in their respective fields, and yet there's such an intense rivalry there.
Oh, well, rivalry's always healthy in any form of sport. It brings the best out in you, that is for sure. The best isn't coming out of the Attitude bike at the moment. Brett Stevens is going to comfortably get the win here.
Nice job. You'd think you were taking it fairly easily. He ran it through at a 7:65 at 272 k's an hour. The boss.
It's a great facility. It's only going to get better, and to have a meeting of this size for their first one, it's a credit to them that it's come off so well. But it's going to get better as we keep going.
Well, why wouldn't he be happy with the way things are going at the moment? There's a massive crowd in the house. They're racing at one of the finest venues in the world. They've got to be happy. Brett Stevens is no Robinson Crusoe there. Everybody is pretty pleased with what they're seeing as the second of the Jack Daniels entries arrives for duty, and Craig Bonwick on the Harley.
Yes, up against the third of the Jack Daniels Racing, Brett Stevens prepared Harley Davidson. Troy McLean used to be Brett's crew chief for a number of years, and then Brett rewarded him with a ride of the second bike. Craig Bonwick, a Sydney-sider, would certainly love to win in front of his home crowd here today.
They're just insane-looking machines, aren't they? You're just straddling a rocket.
Bonwick on the smaller capacity Harley Davidson runs a little bit more consistently and made it to the semi-finals at the Nationals. He's got to get around McLean this time if he wants to do the same thing. Just look at the bike rolling forward in the straight. You can see the timing beams there. Promise for Bonwick, it's going to be McLean all the way.
Good night. Jack Daniels' entry is home and hosed. A good ride for McLean. In the end, it was pretty easy stuff. Not a particularly fast time. 8:35 at 231, accounting for a 10:87. Quarter-final action now, thanks to Dragster Australia magazine. Good mag, that. Get it myself. Check out all the action. Bodie McCormack in the Holden Statesman up against Neil Maxwell in the Corolla. Both guys, of course, successful in round one of eliminations. We come now to the quarters.
Yes, and a great example between these two cars of how you can go super gas racing differently. The Statesman is a full chassis car, purpose-built drag car. The Corolla probably started off as a super street car, got quicker, went to super sedan, got quicker, and ran consistently, so now is in super gas eliminators. So a lot of the guys you might find with some really tough street cars end up in super gas when they want to get into some real championship racing pretty hard.
Oh, you gotta love that. Big wheelie lead. The Statesman on the line. You'd expect the Statesman to get a pretty good run, though, coming home with the wet sail.
Yeah, the Statesman has more of a top-end charge. I think he got there first, yes. 10.36 at 190 kilometres an hour for the win, but a big wheels in the air launch for the Corolla of Maxwell.
You gotta love the Corolla. That was a good run.
Oh, what a feeling.
Very close in the end.
This is an example of what I was talking about before, about some cars seem to slow down and then take off. That's exactly what the Statesman did. It launched, slowed up, and then had more of a top-end charge. And just have a look how fine this on the line just got there.
Second quarter-final right now, Dale O'Dwyer from Toowoomba and HZ Holden up against Johnny Summerach from Cawdor, New South Wales, and the Ford Cortina. A 302 Windsor-powered Cordy off to your right there.
I think, I could be wrong about John's car, but I'm pretty certain he runs a manual gearbox as well. I know he did for a long time, which makes it what he does in super gas racing even better, because it's all about consistency. Obviously, it's a lot easier to be consistent with an automatic gearbox, which most people run. If you've got to worry about putting your foot on the clutch and changing gears, it makes running consistent in super gas a very big ordeal indeed.
You'd have to think the Cortina would be considerably lighter than the Holden as well, and look at it just running away.
Problems, I think. Oh,
9.64. They've both gone out, but the Cordy goes first.
Well, that was just a big mistake by John. He went too quick by a long way indeed. He should have looked over his shoulder. You can see the gap that he's got over O'Dwyer. Now, it looked like O'Dwyer had a problem, but he ran under his index as well. And the Cortina, just with a huge gap, probably should have nailed the brakes right about now and still would have got the win, but a 9.64 is just too quick.
Well, Stuart McBain now from Delicom Victoria, the Gemini Coupe, 406, thank you very much, with Michael Jennings from Valley View in South Australia, the Mark 1 Cordy with a 355 Chev. Now, this will be an interesting battle. Two similar vehicles in terms of both lightweight, both are going to be quick off the line.
Yes, and how they get down the racetrack will probably be totally different as well. Some guys, their cars can just run 9.9 seconds and charge down the racetrack, or other guys have to get on and off the throttle and sort of judge the way the car is travelling down the track a little bit better. The Cortina's got the edge with the Gemini with a top-end charge. Gemini gets the win. 9.94 beats a 9.90, but you can see why. There was 5/100ths of a second difference on the start line. The Gemini had the better reaction time. It ran slower, but because it was sharper off the start line, we got the win.
Dragster Australia bringing us some excellent super gas action here from the opening meeting here at the Western Sydney International Dragway. Semi-final action coming up later in the show. Time now for quarter-final action of the BBR Transport Modified Bike Eliminators. It brings up Bob Shaw from Townsville in Queensland and Steve Paris from the Northern Territory. Man, they are travelling some distance to be here for this one.
Yeah, you see the number one on the wheelie bars of that motorcycle indicates that he's the number one in Modified Bike Eliminator. Both of them fairly similar looking machines, one lacking a little bit of fairing. And Modified Bike, like Modified Car, is a dial your own category, which means that the riders nominate a dial-in or a time that they think their bike can run close to. And the idea is to get as close as you possibly can to that. If you go too quick, though, you lose.
Steve Paris closest to screen is the top-end tearaway. Bob Shaw is the number one plate holder to the far right of our screen. Red light, though, I think, for the Northern Territory rider, Steve Paris. He red lights out of it. Man, that's disappointing indeed.
Shaw used this opportunity to test the dial-in and runs a 9.063 on a 9.06 dial-in. Gets it right by 3/1000ths of a second. Didn't matter, though. You see the red light coming up on the tree for the Northern Territory, and unfortunately, he's not going to go through the next round. But Shaw, fantastic. The bike, you can see right in the middle of the racetrack, right in the groove, and gets it right by 3/1000ths of a second.
227 kilometres an hour. Good run for him. Marty Searle to be the next one up from Raceview in Queensland. Now, that's a great place to come from. Aboard a Suzuki Hayabusa, and isn't it turned out beautifully?
Yeah, and still having the solo pass, he's elected not to put the bike down the racetrack. He just put it into stage, accepted the green, and he's rolling back, and it looks like the crowd might be giving him a bit of a hard time.
Come on, mate, give us a run, that type of thing. Darren Mason now on the Suzuki Katana up against Keith Mearns from Yeppoon in Queensland on the Kawasaki. The Suzuki Katana, mate, that was a muscle bike a few years ago.
Yeah, very popular motorcycle in drag racing. Nice body style and good combination that works very well in modified bike. You can see it's not the way it came off the factory floor, though. A little bit more stretched out, a little bit more laid down, and featuring a set of wheelie bars to keep the front wheel on the ground.
Slightly illegal wheelie bar situation there in terms of the road use.
922 races a 904, so that means that the Kawasaki will get a little bit of an advantage off the start line. It doesn't equate to win at the finishing line. With Die Your Own Racing, anything can happen. And it's going to be Mason, I think, quite comfortably. 930 at 134 mile an hour or 215 kilometres per hour.
Driving the Holden HZ 355 Chevy up against Stuart McBain and the giant-killing Gemini with a 406.
Pair of Holdens on the start line, which is good for the General Motors fans. And as I said before, pretty much the determining factor to run in Supergas Eliminator is to run as close as you possibly can to 9.90 seconds. Both cars getting away fairly cleanly this time, and we've got pretty good side-by-side match. I think O'Dwyer has the edge, but as we know, the Gemini is good with a top-end charge. It gets there this time as well at 991 at 223 kilometres per hour.
I think the only solace that Ford fans can take out of this whole result is that the Cortina was too fast in the previous round. Can you brag about that?
Well, not really.
No, I didn't think so.
It doesn't get you the win, unfortunately.
So that's a very good result indeed for Stuart McBain. That Gemini grew some big legs towards the last part of the run here. It's a semi-final action, thanks to Dragster Australia magazine. Bodie McCormick is going to have a pretty easy job of this. A single pass for him in the Statesman.
Well, the Statesman before, when he had a red light beside him, drove it through the back door. And when I say drove through the back door, what I mean by that is he stayed on the throttle all the way to the finishing line, and it actually went too quick with the 985. He'll probably do the same thing here and drive it right down the racetrack as quick as he possibly can to see how well the car is set up and how close it can run to 9.10 seconds. You see how the car sort of slowed up a little bit, sort of stumbled a little bit, and then came on strong. It's designed to do that. What does he run? 982. He'll have to slow it down.
BBR Transport semi-final action now for modified bike, and it brings up Marty Searle on the Hayabusa up against Bob Shaw on the Kawasaki ZX 1400cc machine. Yes, he's going to have to do some work this time out, Mr. Immaculate here. That is a fat-looking bike.
And that is a great burnout from a pretty much street-looking motorcycle. Obviously, two different approaches to drag racing. One lowered, stretched, laid back with wheelie bars. The other one looks fairly much straight off the factory floor, bar a fantastic paint scheme and set of leathers. Totally different way they have to leave the start line as well. Shaw can just open the throttle, dump the clutch, whereas the Hayabusa has to use a lot of throttle control and some clutch slippage.
That is a great looking bike of Marty Searle's. See how he fares.
Bob Shaw, the Aussie champion's got the number one on the bike. Is he good enough, though, to catch the big speed of the Hayabusa? He gets to leave first. Look at him looking over his shoulder, just on and off the throttle, and he's going to get the win quite comfortably.
Man, it's got to rub a little bit of insult into it when you got the brake light on. A 961 in the end beats a 906. Reaction time was where it was all at, but man, when you're trailing a guy that's got the brake light on and you can't catch him, that's got to rub it in the wound.
Hayabusas make great drag racing bikes. They've got big horsepower, the fastest production bike off the factory floor, I believe. And just have a look at Searle here. He sits up, looks over his shoulder, goes, yeah, I've got this one. Dab the brake, saved his dial in, gets the win.
And Darren Mason on board a Katana as well, a Suzuki Katana. Unfortunately, a single pass for him. Will he take the option and have a run?
Yeah, he could test his dial in here, but by the look of his very casual approach, he's just going to push it, put it into stage. All he has to do is accept the green under the starter's orders, and that's enough to see him into the final. He's going to save maintenance on the bike. He's not going to stress the equipment out. He just pushes it back very casually and makes his way into the final. A BBR Transport modified modified bike eliminator. Could have, however, used it to test his dialing. Doesn't want to. He obviously feels very confident with the way this thing is set up.
There are three main supercharger types: the more traditional roots blower, the Whipple, and this car here is running a PSI. Now, these rely on a more efficient screw type internals, while the root blowers use a two-twisted rotor system with Teflon seals. Now, the governing body has dictated different overdrives for each supercharger. Now, this has been done to equalise competition and to stop a monopoly on one particular make. Now, as the top fuelers have no overdrive limits, screw-type superchargers are banned from the nitro ranks. But I've got to tell you, folks, their popularity in the methanol classes is overwhelming. They think these things are the bee's knees.
Okay, we've got the injection head here, that sucks in the air, which then goes into the supercharger here, which is a roots supercharger. That pumps the air into the manifold, and with these fuel lines, they go to each individual cylinder, and we can richen and lean the fuel system. This engine's run a 6.6 in this street-registered Sarkis racing car, which is the fastest street car in Australia.
Remember the scene in Mad Max 1 where he turns on the supercharger and the interceptor and the belt brakes? Well, there's another piece of movie magic. The supercharger would have stopped, the engine would have practically stopped because it wasn't getting enough air or fuel.
Time now for your semi-final for Pennzoil top door slammer action here at Western Sydney International Dragway. Steve Stanek there with the O'Rourke power plant in the lucky Valeri Camaro, looking for a fairly sizable burnout. Comes up alongside Brett Stevens. Now this is a bit of a grudge match because if you remember, Stanek took care of Brett Stevens at the Nationals at Willowbank, so you would think Brett Stevens would be primed to knock off the Valeri Camaro.
Yes, he certainly would like to get a little bit of revenge, and Steve Stanek actually got that win via a hole shot. Brett Stevens ran, I think, from memory a little bit quicker, but Steve Stanek was a little bit sharper on the start line and got the win based on the hole shot. As you said, Brett Stevens certainly doesn't want to make the same mistake here in the semi-finals.
This is a very cluey man behind the wheel right here. He's not just thinking about being a top bike champion and a door slammer champion. He's basically conquering the world in Australia at the moment. He's thinking super team, he's thinking global sponsorships. He's a very switched on individual.
And he certainly is pushing. That's one of his goals, is to win both top fuel motorcycle and top door slammer in the same season. He's won the same categories at the same event. He did that at Quarter Park firstly and then at the Motorplex in Perth, Western Australia, but he wants to be able to win both the top door slammer and top bike championships in the same year.
Stanek is a cool hand, Luke. There's no doubt about it. He's knocked off some of the biggest games, including both the Bray family at Willowbank, and he knocked off this man in the final, Brett Stevens. So what can he do this time? Stanek up against Stevens.
Stevens is into stage, waiting for Stanek to roll it in. There's Stevens full stage, Stanek is in, the revs are up, they come out hard, and I think Brett Stevens has got the edge. Stanek driving that car hard right over near the centre line, but Brett Stevens into the final, a 6:22 with a 7, 367 kilometres per hour, and that car didn't look like losing. But have a look at the tyre shake for Stanek there. He really had to drive that car.
That's a much better result for Stevens too. They were running more around the 640s in that previous run, so down to the 620 bracket, a whole lot better, a lot closer to Phillips's qualifying time last night.
Actually quicker, so that would have qualified a number one. Bad luck for the O'Rourke and Valeri teams, but Brett Stevens into the final.
Yeah, mate, we've stepped up a bit. You know, it's cooled off now. The track's cooled down, so we're throwing a bit more in it. We're going to put a little bit more in it for the final. I don't know who's going to win here, so we'll just have to see what happens.
Well, we're used to seeing this sign in plenty of other forms of motorsport, but it looks as though Holden may be increasing their involvement in the sport of drag racing. Benny Bray, firstly, tell us about this amazing burnout ute.
Yes, we have a good relationship with Holden, as you can see, and we went and built a burnout ute for them so they could have a bit of entertainment at wherever they need it and wherever they want it, I guess. Yeah, it's nearly on its track, so we probably debut this early March. And other than that, we're just looking forward to getting out there and doing a couple of burnout shows in it and making the Holden ute look good.
Semi-final action right now. This is the second part of it. Ben Bray up against Peter Kapiris in your Pennzoil top door slammer action from the opening meeting here at Western Sydney. Look at that magnificent new surface. Here is Ben Bray and the Castrol Chevy, soon to be the Super Cheap Autos Chevy and soon to be Super Cheap Autos Monaro. He'll come up against Kapiris, who already took care of Dad earlier on.
You might have noticed there's quite a few Studebaker body styles in Top Doorslammer. It's fairly popular because it's very aerodynamic. It cuts through the air quite well. Not as aerodynamic, however, as the early 60s Corvette, which actually has to run more weight than the other cars because it is that aerodynamic.
I don't care, it's mean. Have a look at the thing. It looks nasty.
Well, speaking of nasty, if Ben Bray goes to a super cheap Monaro, which is rumoured, how tough will that look?
You've got to love the big Shark's head at the front there. He's certainly got some responsibility on his shoulders. He's handled the pressure of being Victor Bray's kid very well indeed. As we take a look at that immaculate Studi, there is the eyes of a gunfighter. Have a look, pretty casual, and he sticks the mid out the window. So he's focused, but not too focused. He can't afford to wave at the camera.
You've got to remember, Benny has grown up in the sport of drag racing, has been around for a very, very long time, and is pretty relaxed with these big high horsepower, 3,000 horsepower Top Doorslammers. And this isn't it for Ben Bray. Top Doorslammer isn't the final stop. There's rumours he was also going to run in Top Alcohol, and who knows where from there.
Here we go, Kapiris v Bray. It'll be a beauty. Bray closest to camera. It's a good-looking launch for Kapiris, but Ben Bray looks good. Bray runs it through.
Yeah, Petty Kapiris out of shape, and Bray a 6.22 with a 4. So there is 3 1/1000ths of a second difference between the two cars heading to the final. Have a look at this on the replay. Ben Bray, the car started to make a slight move to the wall, but Kapiris is the one that's right out of shape. He got towards the centre line. Benny Bray going to the final, though.
Oh yeah, I can't believe that. The car, I haven't done a really full pass in the car in qualifying all weekend. It really had me worried. And I don't know what to say, the car's flying, but I guess my father, he was one of the best crew chiefs in the world. He told me last night we went home, he said, son, don't worry about your car, it'll go. And that sort of had me worried, and I thought, oh, my dad's never let me down in my life, so I thought he's always there to rest on my shoulders. So I thought, well, when you got someone as good as him there, I thought, well, there you go. And then take out number 1 qualifying, number 3 qualify. I think that's the best thing in the world. And now get back there, and I guess everything's a bonus from here. We're in the final.
Semi-final action now for Wild West Custom Cycles top bike, and it doesn't get much wilder than this triumph. It is an amazing thing. Sprintex backed Jay Upton, formerly a Pommy, living in Western Australia these days and never hanging around very long at all in one place.
Yes, not only does it look radical due to its amazing body style, but everything underneath that carbon fibre body is different in Top Fuel Motorcycle. Dave Boren in beside him on the 1327cc Suzuki. I think he's just stalled that bike. Yes, he's stepping off in disgust.
Well, that's disappointing. I mean, you've got to go into any battle against Jay Upton with your back against the wall, but that is a disappointing result. What will Upton do here now? We expect a really big run from him, or just coast it through?
No, Jay's going to go all the way. This is a really good opportunity for him to test the tune-up on this motorcycle. They've been really reveling in the conditions. As I said before, it has a very unique clutch system, and while people are suffering in the hot, slippery conditions, Jay Upton is getting this thing down the racetrack. Geez, look at the way he has to ride it, leaning on and off the motorcycle, and he is leaning right off it through the lights. As a matter of fact, he gets a leg off, 671 at 287 kilometres per hour.
Jay, get into it, son.
Just have a look how he has to ride this thing wide. You can see the rear shot. Just having, you can't turn the steering wheel. They've got a massive wide tyre on this, and the only way to steer it is to lean your body off the motorcycle. And you can see as he goes through the lights, he actually gets a leg off the bike, deploys the chute. What a ride.
It smoked the tyre a little in the middle of the track, and I got a little loose, and you might have seen I was well off it coming through the top. So anyway, we tidied it up, and that's okay.
Wild West Custom Cycle Centre bringing us to second semi-final right now. A huge crowd in the house, the opening meeting from Western Sydney International Dragway. Now, spare a thought for this guy, okay? This is his boss right here. This is Brett Stevens aboard the Jack Daniels Harley. The guy that's got to take him on is basically the guy that employs him to ride the second bike. So my question to you, Nathan, is Troy McLean going to go for it and risk eating through a straw for a week? Or is he going to lay down?
Oh, of course he's going to go for it. I mean, these bikes theoretically are very similar. They're the same sort of engine combination, same sort of tune-up. I believe Brett still does a lot of the tuning in Troy McLean's bike, so Troy certainly has his own input. However, Brett wants that bike to run well as well, but I certainly think Troy will be trying his hardest to beat Brett Stevens, that's for sure.
Well, he's got a chance at it, but Stevens has been pretty tough so far. Oh, the bike gets a bit of a wriggle up, but look at this, the boss powers on and puts the second Jack Daniels bike on ice, a 696 at 319 as he skis it in.
Stevens has had trouble with his bike for a number of years. It turned out to be a $20 fuel filter, and ever since they've cured that fuel flow issue, this bike has been running very strong. Another 6-second pass, over 200-mile-an-hour performance from this thing, and he's into the final.
Yeah, it was a good race, but we were side by side. I think he dropped the cylinder there at the end, and that's racing, but go jump in the car now. I'm a little bit out of breath too.
Good luck, mate. Let you go.
Thank you.
Time now for the final of Dragster Australia Super Gas, and it brings up Stuart McBain and the giant-killing Gemini up against Bodie McCormick and the Holden Statesman. So this will be an interesting battle in itself. You'd have to lean a little bit towards the Gemini, I would think.
Well, both of these cars have been doing the same thing in their eliminations, and that is coming on with a big top-end charge. We've seen the Gemini come from behind and win in pretty much every performance, and the same with the Statesman. However, the Statesman's had a solo pass and a red light, so I think a little bit more of the racing has gone the way of the Gemini. Either way, it's going to be a very interesting matchup here.
Great crowd there.
Oh, red light!
Early, you can't believe that, and by a long way too, Nate.
Yeah, that had to be a mistake. I'm not sure whether that was nerves. He just had to have made a mistake to go that early. And a 9.895 is a class effort in itself, 230 kilometres per hour, and McBain wins the Summer Nationals here at the Western Sydney National Dragway. You're right, Wade, that was just very, very soon indeed.
Maybe a little bit of nerves. It's an excellent crowd in the house here, a lot of atmosphere in the place. It is the opening meeting of Western Sydney, and everybody wants to win their class. In the end, though, it'll be Stuart McBain and the Gemini from Victoria. He'll be a winner thanks to Dragster Australia. Final time now for the BBR Transport modified bike, and this will be an interesting battle here. Marty Searle and Darren Mason, both guys had pretty easy runs in the quarters and the semis respectively. That is an amazing looking machine, the Hayabusa. And of course, both guys electing not to take single passes earlier on.
Yeah, that's an amazing bike. It's very, very powerful. Loves its big burnout. And Searle got the win in the semi-finals, I would have to say, very, very comfortably. Did it almost too easily. Got to about 1,000 foot, sat up on the bike, looked over his shoulder and went, hey, I've got this one comfortably, and just made sure that he didn't break out. Does he have enough performance up his sleeve to do the same thing here? Gets a lot tougher with every round of racing you make it through.
Mason with a lot lower dial in it with a 923. Searle with a 960.
So basically what that means is the bike in the far lane will get to leave first. You'll see the Christmas tree or the starting lights count down handicap, so therefore bike in the far lane will get a slight advantage off the start line, and then the quicker bike closest to camera will have to do all the chasing.
Searle getting away smartly. Mason closest to camera now. Mason's got a lot of ground to make up. Searle looking very good. The Queenslander rolls it off and still manages to run it through and gets the win. A 971 beats a 925.
And he did this so easily. I think this bike probably should run a lot quicker than what he's dialed in. Have a look, he's already looking over his shoulder at the other lane. He was glancing at that other bike the whole way down the racetrack, and about here he's going, oh, that'll do, I'll get off, rolls it through and gets an easy win.
Time now for the final. This is going to be a cracker. It's a repeat of the battle at Willowbank. Jay Upton here, the White Knight on the Sprintex Triumph, up against the Jack Daniels Harley of Brett Stevens. Good versus evil? You decide.
Certainly looks that way. White versus dark, and Upton and Stevens both putting on huge burnouts here.
Look at the style.
Both wanting to get plenty of tire in these heat in these massive rear tyres that these motorcycles run. Brett Stevens' bike reputed to make around 1,500 horsepower, would you believe? Brett Stevens, the bike only makes around 800 horsepower, but masses of torque. It only revs, would you believe, to 4,900 RPM, but if you can get it on 4,900 RPM across the finishing line, it should be doing 200 miles per hour. Jay Upton has been 214 miles per hour.
What a battle this will be. Upton gets off the line beautifully. Stevens, no answer. Upton smokes home to win the final. It's a 6:39, 344 kilometres an hour. He puts Brett Stevens away.
The quickest pass in history in Australia for Top Fuel motorcycle, a 6:39. The speed though, 215 miles per hour. Jay Upton resets the national ET record in top bike and gets the win. What a ride.
Jay Upton, a 6:39.215, a new Aussie record.
Beautiful. And I think we did the other half of the mile an hour record last night, so that actually is both halves of the record this weekend and a win. And our first 6:30. How about that for a first event in Sydney?
Time now for the Pennzoil Top Doorslammer final. And this is going to be a ripper. Brett Stevens huffing and puffing as he just got off his top bike after not quite knocking off Jay Upton. Now looking to redeem himself in the Top Doorslammer final. Bray, well, is capable of anything, this kid. Stevens, of course, also looking to avenge his defeat at the Nationals at Willowbank.
Both these guys starting to get on top of the combinations as well. Both of them ran 6:22. Stevens with a 7, Ben Bray with a 4. So as I said before, only 3/1000ths of a second difference between the two. Brett Stevens does the tune-up both on the top bike and the Top Doorslammer himself, and of course Ben Bray also, might surprise people, does his own tune-up. Of course Victor's taught him pretty much everything he knows, but the final decision with that car is certainly Benny's.
I notice that Brett is starting to advertise his services too in race prep and engine building and all that sort of stuff, so the guy's branching out to be more than just race car drivers, that is for sure. In comes the Jack Daniels Racing Studebaker, also backed by eBank Trade, and alongside him the Castrol Chevy of Ben Bray. Benny the Kid. This will be a screamer.
Soon to be the super cheap car, as we mentioned, and I believe still going to stay with the Shark livery, which will certainly please a lot of people. Waiting for Bray to come into stage. The revs are up around about 4,000 to 5,000 RPM. Into stage, Bray comes out. Stevens smokes the tyres straight away, and Benny the Kid is going to get the win.
And that's a big drive, isn't it? Stevens never really looked like getting off. 6:25, so marginally slower. A 3:66 beats a 6:74 at a shade under 360 kilometres an hour. Here's the replay.
Have a look at Brett Stevens. The car immediately goes into wheel spin. I don't know whether he changed too much between the different rounds of racing, but just was balancing on the edge. Wheel spin for Stevens. The win, though, for Bray.
So I owe this to my team. They worked so hard this weekend, and I don't know if I could do it without them. Like, I got good guys that back me. I got a good family behind me. I got, I guess, good sponsors as well. My sponsors do everything for me, like Holden and Castrol, super cheap. They got me here, and I guess they're going to keep me here, and hopefully we can come back here and do it again. Thank you very much.
Yes, congratulations to Benny the Kid. He's pretty laid back, isn't he? Some fireworks in the sky. That was nothing compared to what we saw on this brand new Western Sydney surface. There's more awesome drag racing action on next week's program. We hope you'll join us then. On behalf of all the Speed Week team, hope you enjoyed the action.